doing our usual review of our last trip, so our 13 weeks around Borneo, Malaysia, Singapore and Thailand. And we're running a bit late in getting it done because we fly out on our next trip tomorrow, so we need to get this done today.
We do, and we need to get it done quick because we should be cleaning for the house sitter.
Well, we should, yeah. Okay, so I'm being nagged to clean. So we'll race through this, so apologies if there's any errors because I'm being rushed. Anyway, yeah, we're just planning for our next trip. We're not planning, we're going tomorrow and we're off to Cambodia and Vietnam, we think. Certainly Cambodia, because we're doing the Cambodia Wildlife Sanctuary, which is like the sister site of the Elephant Nature Park that we did last time. And then we're going to drive a tuk-tuk around Cambodia for a week or so, using tuk-tuk rental again. So if you fancy that, then there's a discount code in the description that you can use to book yours. And then we've also got a gibbon experience booked in Laos right at the end, and then the bit in the middle is a bit less planned, probably Vietnam by the look of it. Okay, so here goes, courtesy of Stipple. We flew to Singapore where we just had a day because the Grand Prix was coming that week. So then we went straight on to Kuching where we had a lovely few days, really nice little town, which included a visit to the Bako National Park. We then went on to Mulu National Park, which was a great few days with caves and walks around the jungle. Then on to Kota Kinabalu, and we went straight on up to Kota Balud for a few days at a dive centre there, which was right on the beach. Beautiful place. Back to KK and then up to Sepalok, where we went to the orangutan sanctuary and the sun bears before going to the Kimbatangan River, which was one of the real highlights, the cruise there. After Kinabatangan, we went back to Sandakan just for a couple of days by the pool, back to KK, and then back to Singapore to have a few days there to properly explore the city. After that, it was back up the coast in Malaysia to Malacca, which was a lovely little town, before we went on to KL for a few days in KL. From KL, it was on to Ipoh, which isn't a place we'd particularly recommend. Nice temples, but not a great town. Then we went on to Penang, which was really nice, although the weather wasn't great. Then up to Langkawi. We'd had enough of Malaysia by then, so it was on to Koh Lipe, which was our new favourite island, before we went on to Koh Muk and Koh Nagai. After a bit of island hopping, we headed up to one of our favourite places in Thailand, which is Koh Lak. Been there a couple of times before and it was as good as we remembered. We then tried Patong for 2 days, wouldn't recommend it, before we went up to Chiang Mai. We had a few days in Chiang Mai before we went up to the Elephant Nature Park, which was absolutely fabulous. If you want to volunteer, that's the place to go. Back to Chiang Mai for a couple more days. We then took a bus back down, heading for Bangkok, but stopped off at Sukhothai to see the ruins there and the historical sites before we ended up back in Bangkok and flew home from there.
Alan's favourite bit is totting up how much we've spent, and our biggest spend was on accommodation. So this time we spent £3,296 on accommodation, which is a lot over what we normally spend, and it averaged out at £37.80 a night.
Yeah, I think previous trips we've averaged around 30, so quite a bit more, but then there are some reasons for that. There are a couple of places where we either had all-inclusive or it was part of a deal, so we just kind of averaged that out a bit, but they were more expensive. Our most expensive accommodation was Big Fin, which was £70, but that was all-inclusive, so yeah, that did include quite a bit of the food and other bits and pieces as well. Yeah. And then after that, it was the 2 ibises we stayed in Singapore were expensive at £66 and £56 a night. Yeah, I mean, we knew Singapore was going to be expensive.
That wasn't really that expensive.
Well,
for Singapore, everything else was over 100, so they were fine.
Your favourite accommodation?
Well, we quite liked the mountain resort, didn't we? Koh Lipe.
Not quite liked, we loved it.
We loved it because it was just really lovely, so we'd highly recommend that.
Yeah, and that was
probably our favourite.
And that was about £50 a night, which included a fabulous breakfast, including ice gems.
But also the Hornbill Lodge was expensive. Yeah. That was our first luxury one on the Kimbatangan River, so that was really
brilliant.
good.
That was lovely as well. Yeah. Worst?
The You said the tune. I'd have said the one on Komook was probably the worst.
I mean,
it was a bit sad, but
could have been lovely. It was just a bit noisy because it was right next to the road to the pier. So yeah, up until about 11 o'clock at night, you heard everyone going up and down to the pier, and then it started again about 4:30 or 5 in the morning. So it was just a bit noisy, and probably just needed a bit of a refresh.
Yeah.
The Tune Hotel in Kuching, we knew it was going to be very basic, and it was.
But again, we paid extra to have a window and wished we didn't, so that was annoying.
Yeah.
And the cheapest was the Bako Lodge at £10 a night.
£10, yeah.
But also the fact that we stayed on site in Borneo, in Mulu, that was more expensive. That was around £50 a night as well, so that was well worth it.
Yeah.
So,
and some of the places, and a few of the places in Malaysia where we had apartments worked out a lot cheaper as well. So yeah, if you're going to be somewhere for long enough to make it worth getting an apartment, that tends to work out a bit cheaper. So yeah, overall, if you think we've been away for the best part of 3 months, the fact that there's only a couple of places that we didn't like is pretty good going. Well done us.
The next most expensive category was food and drink, unsurprisingly, but actually it wasn't that much. It was £1,919, which isn't too much for 13 weeks, I don't think. No. Mainly because we eat at a lot of markets, a lot of hawker centres, particularly in Singapore. We like Lau Pasat. That's right, Lau Pasat hawker centre, which was very reasonable. We didn't eat in any fancy hotels or restaurants in Singapore, but we had some excellent food, so that was really good. It
came out about £22 a day, whereas we budgeted for 30, so kind of clawed back what we overspent in terms of hotels.
Yeah.
And some of the food was included in hotels where they were all inclusive or where you got breakfast, so it probably balanced out about right. Yeah. One of my highlights was the pizza in Malacca. It was probably helped by having had quite a few beers. I think the chef might have done as well because he was bouncing around to his music. But that was just a really nice evening and some of the best pizza we've ever had. So if you're feeling the need for Western food and you're in Malacca, go to that pizza place because it was brilliant. Yeah. And I think the other highlight, kind of meal related, was when we got to have the meal on the beach in the little family restaurant in Koh Lak, and it was Loy Krathong. And the family were all dressed up, and we got to join in with lanterns and fireworks, and that was just a really nice night. And the food there was really good because we went there a couple of times.
Yeah, it wasn't expensive though.
No. Yeah. So that was really nice. Alcohol, to try and think the best way to position this, we spent £4.50 a day on alcohol, which doesn't sound horrendous until you look at what we spent last time, which was £2.44. Now, I'm putting that down to inflation. Jan gave me a dirty look when I thought it was just inflation, but then it was more expensive in Malaysia as well.
It was, but to be honest, we didn't drink as much. We hardly drank through.
Yeah, it didn't feel maybe...
In Borneo, we hardly had anything.
No.
So it really had to have been the price, because I feel that certainly the beginning of the trip to Malaysia and Borneo, Malacca aside, we didn't drink.
No, and we didn't have many cocktails at all. It was really just a couple of beers here and there. So yeah, I think it must have been the price. So prices have probably gone up.
And the really expensive ones we had in Singapore that were £10 a year.
Yes, yeah, that's
so
true.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah. In terms of the flights, this was a lot less than usual, but that's because we used our Avios and a companion voucher. So our main flights, which normally would be 12 to 1,500 for the 2 return flights.
Certainly are going out this time.
Yeah. That was only £450 because we used those Avios and the companion voucher.
Otherwise, we had to fly around Borneo as well, so we did a lot more flights, but those were so cheap because if you book ahead and get those cheap deals with AirAsia, it makes a big difference. Yeah. And plus the flights to Mulu, you can't go with AirAsia, you can only go with you can go with AirAsia.
Yeah. So all the flights around sort of from Singapore to Borneo, the internal flights in Borneo and then back to Singapore was £508, which isn't bad for the number of flights. But yeah, we did try one bus. It was long, and it wasn't. we did it to see if it was sort of a nice view or a nice journey. The first hour and a half was nice, and then it was just palm oil plantations and roadworks, and I think it looks like they make it individual carriageway. So I think it'll be much quicker in the future, but not now. So wouldn't recommend that unless you really want to see the palm oil plantation. In terms of other forms of transport, we spent £789 on other bits of getting around the place. We did use, in true race across the world style, pretty much every form of land transport. We did a few buses, a couple of mopeds, a few speedboats, lots of grabs and taxis, particularly in Malaysia. That was a really cheap way of getting about. And then we also used the BTS, the MRT, and the equivalent in Singapore as well, which was really good. And one train.
Yeah, and you forgot one.
I forgot one?
Yeah, bikes.
Oh, push bikes. Yeah.
We were on quite a lot of bikes.
Yeah, not really to get from A to B. We tended to get back to A.
Yes, okay, I'll do that. But the general transport, we did quite a lot of biking in Thailand, around Sukhothai, and then around KL.
Yes.
So, bikes.
Yeah, we didn't do bikes with the rucksacks on our backs and to get from one place to another.
No,
thank God. I think that would have put it a bit beyond us. But yeah, so lots of different forms of travel, which always makes it quite interesting. And some of the buses were quite long, but quite good.
Luxurious.
The Thailand ones were pretty good.
Yeah.
And the Malaysian ones, and the Singapore. Yeah,
the
all
one
the
from
buses.
Singapore to Malacca was good.
Yeah, all the buses
very
good.
easy customs.
Yeah.
As ever, when we were away, we booked in to do lots of different activities, particularly in Borneo, which cost a bit, but weren't too expensive. So we did some kayaking, which was fantastic. That was our first thing. That was £82. We saw the orangutans several times, which was definitely worth it, but that was very cheap. That was under £10.
Some bears were a little more, but again, well worth it.
Yeah. And then we went to Mulu National Park, which was amazing, and I think should be on every Borneo itinerary. That was 103, but that was definitely worth it.
I mean, that was several walks: a canopy walk, going in the caves, the Bat Exodus. So yeah, there was a lot within that.
Yeah. And then the Kimbatangan River, which was one of our favourite bits, which was more expensive than we perhaps would normally pay, but it did include the accommodation, and I think we got a very good deal because it's gone up a lot in price now. So that was really good. We also paid an extra bit there to go on a night cruise, which was really exciting and gave a whole other feeling to it. There's one thing being on the river at night, in the day knowing there's crocodiles, but at night when you can see the eyes of the crocodiles, it's a whole other thing.
When you see a 5 metre long crocodile about 20 metres from the pier at the hotel,
so that was good.
Makes you realise.
We enjoyed Mike's bikes as well. That was £80 for the two of us, so £40 each, and that was well worth it. Recommend that. The Komook boat trip was good. Going in the Emerald Cave, that wasn't very expensive. That was £23. And the Mai Tai we did in Chiang Mai was disappointing
compared to the others we've done in Koh Lanta and Bangkok. It just wasn't as good, but you'll have seen that in the videos.
And then obviously the Elephant Nature Park was expensive. You said £240 each? Is that what it was? Okay.
Well, I've split it between accommodation, food and activities.
So that's how much it is for the activity. I was going to say we paid more than that. But it was a really full-on, interesting, rewarding thing to do. So
hence why we're going to Cambodia to do the same again.
Yes. Right.
In terms of other sightseeing, and it's always a bit of a thin line between whether you put something in sightseeing or an activity, but a few other bits we did was the Singapore Cloud Forest, which was £40. That was definitely worth seeing, and particularly the night bit, which was actually free.
That was good.
The night show was really good. Various museums and other bits and pieces, sanctuaries and some other things came to £90, and then a couple of Watts in Bangkok was £22. So overall another 222 on sightseeing. But as I say, sightseeing activities, they kind of merge a bit.
What he's not put in activity or sightseeing is how much he spent on massages.
Oh, I haven't.
That was a considerable amount, and he had more than me. So there you
go. But they were good.
You'll add it up.
I'll add it up.
I'll put it on a ticker.
I'll add it up. They were generally quite okay. So the grand total that we spent.
Gonna be installed.
was 8.9 thousand. So 8,900. We budgeted around 10 and we saved a bit because we used the vouchers on the flight. So pretty much there or thereabouts in terms of what we expected to spend, which was good. And what was interesting, what we looked at, when we're at home, we spend about 2,500, 2,600 a month. So if we'd been at home, we'd have spent 7,800. Obviously, unless you sell the house and become a complete nomad, that's not a straight comparison. So there's still kind of probably about £700 a month of fixed costs that we pay here when we're not here. So, but it's just interesting to compare and
living at home versus living away. It's not that much. We're not adding too much to our yearly.
There's not a lot. Once you get the flights out the way and get there, it's hardly adding anything at all to our monthly outgoings, which is quite interesting.
But we were adding life to our years.
Joan's new favourite phrase: add life to your years, not years to your life.
Excellent.
I'd rather do both. There you go. Just to finish off with a few kind of highlights. I think the highlights of the trip for me, my two favourite bits were Elephant Nature Park, definitely. We just had such a great week and finished off with a really good night in Chiang Mai, and the Kinabatangan River. I probably said that wrong still.
But you loved it.
I loved it, and I was nervous we weren't going to see many crocodiles, and then we saw a couple of little baby ones about this big, and I thought, oh, well, at least I've seen a crocodile. And then on the next trip we saw some of the 5-6 metre ones, and then we saw loads, and there's just something about them. Don't want to get too close, but that was my highlights. I don't know if you've got anything different.
No, not really. I think they
same.
were similar ones. Yeah, just the people we met, really, probably. If you're watching it, and we met you. We loved meeting you, and that was one of the things that I really liked, just meeting so many interesting people from different parts of the world, views on different things. So it's not just about what you see; it's who you meet.
It is. Most unexpected place for me was probably Sukhothai.
I knew we were going to like that.
No, I didn't.
You didn't listen to me.
Well, probably not. But yeah, I mean, that was just. I hadn't really thought about it much because it was at the end after Elephant Nature Park, and I hadn't really thought that much about it, but it was just incredibly well kept, beautifully presented, and just so quiet. There was just hardly anyone there, which made it really lovely. So yeah, that was a really nice 3 days towards the end. And for me, the most disappointing, which you may not agree with, was Singapore. I just kind of, yes, the architecture and everything's all very impressive, but I just found it a bit soulless. So apart from the hawker markets and the food there, it's impressive in terms of the engineering, but I didn't kind of take to it.
I think you were being overly harsh, but there we go. If you're comparing Singapore to Ipoh, then there's no comparison. So I think that's overly harsh.
Well, it's expectation versus what
yes,
it was actually.
Probably.
So but there you go. No, so overall we had a brilliant 3 months.
We did.
And hence why a month later we're off again.
Sorry, kids.
So as we say, off again. So if you want to follow us on our next adventure, then subscribe to the channel because we're trying to get to that magic 1,000. Well, I am. You don't care. Okay. All right. We'll see you in the next episode. Whatever you want to call it.